Diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. Loaded words these days. Our society has been struggling for some time about what to do with what seems like our increasing diversity. I'm not so sure that there are more differences among us now as there used to be, but I am sure that we're much more aware of the vast human diversity than we used to be. And I'm also sure that how we deal with it, how we engage it, how we experience it, has changed and is changing a great deal. DEI is one of the more recent incarnations of addressing the differences among us. When I asked a local barista what she thought about it, she talked about its unfortunate necessity. It's about opportunity, she explained. It's about everyone having the same opportunities, despite biases or preconceived notions of how someone's identity might impact their work ethic or ability. And then she told me a very personal story about her experience with it. When I followed up with her by asking about another way of our ways of addressing diversity, so-called political correctness, she was likewise positive. It's weirdly divisive terminology, she acknowledged, but it's so important because it means taking other people's life experience into account and not causing harm with words. Here in Canada, we are guided in part by our national policy of multiculturalism. According to the federal government website, multiculturalism supports the belief in Canada that all citizens are equal. Multiculturalism ensures that all citizens can maintain their identities, take pride in their ancestry, and have a sense of belonging. The website goes on to note that Canada was the first country in the world to adopt multiculturalism as an official policy in 1971, and further committed to this value by enshrining it in law through the Canadian Multiculturalism Act in 1988. It all sounds good, and indeed it is. And when we remember our rather sordid history of colonialism, residential schools, Japanese internment, and selectively restrictive immigration policies, we also remember our need for humility, as we are a work in progress. As my barista very coherently described, equity remains an ideal to which we strive, rather than a fait accompli. Multiculturalism, political correctness, DEI, these are ways that we have sought to live with and celebrate human diversity in our own lifetimes. It's a challenge, however, that many people over many centuries have addressed. Our passage today from the Acts of the Apostles is a case in point, although we only hear a few verses from the conclusion of a story that goes right back to the beginning of the chapter. The core question the earliest Jesus followers wrestled with was whether or not a person needed to be Jewish, marked in particular by the ritual of circumcision, to be part of the Jesus community. It was a hot topic. Do Gentile converts need to follow Jewish law? And do Jewish converts need to continue to follow that law when they begin to follow Jesus? This is one of the central themes in the book of Acts. What is the relationship between God, God's teaching, and Gentile people? The backstory for our passage today starts with two different visions experienced by two different people, the Apostle Peter and an Italian centurion named Cornelius. Cornelius's vision had him send servants to go find Peter. Peter, for his part, had a vision of all kinds of animals and then heard a command to eat. "By no means, Lord," Peter exclaims at the voice's command, "for I have never eaten anything that is profane or unclean." The voice, however, was insistent. "What God has made clean, you must not call profane." Now, Peter was still wondering about this strange vision when Cornelius's servants arrive, and Peter goes with them as they ask to Cornelius's house, where he has assembled a party. Now, they all knew it was considered, quote, improper for a Jew to associate with or to visit an outsider. But then Peter puts it together. God has shown me, he says, that I should not call anyone profane or unclean. When Peter asks Cornelius why he sent for him, he relays the story of his own vision and concludes, "So now all of us are here in the presence of God to listen to all the Lord has commanded you to say." And so Peter preaches for the next 10 verses, summarizing the story of Jesus, which gets us to our verses, our passage today. When the Holy Spirit arrives and Peter realizes that they all belong to God, circumcised and uncircumcised alike. The differences among them didn't limit God's activity or God's acceptance. It is an astounding realization for the in-group, the circumcised believers who had come with Peter. To their credit, they could not deny what they saw and what they heard, understanding that it was of God. The gift of the Holy Spirit was at work. The Holy Spirit had been poured out even on Gentiles. And so Peter concludes even these Gentiles are to be ritually accepted through baptism into their newly forming community of Jesus followers. And at their invitation, Peter is invited to stick around for a while and kind of get to know them, which is a good thing too, because word spread about what happened, and Peter had a lot to explain, which he does in detail when he returns to Jerusalem in the next chapter. That's a sermon for another day. In an online event by the Center for Action and Contemplation just this past Friday that was titled, "How Can We Reclaim Jesus from Empire?" Brian McLaren noted that all of today's churches have been shaped by a Christianity shaped by empire. The idea of empire is the idea of supremacy or domination. It's the overconfidence that our way is, if not the only way, certainly the best way, the godly way. McLaren concludes that to reclaim Jesus from this system, we need to look for the places where God's Spirit is working and join in. That's how the church can be renewed. I wonder who we would be astounded to see and hear the Holy Spirit falling upon. Perhaps the people gathering in downtown right now to celebrate the LGBTQ+ community in the Pride Parade and Festival happening right about now. Perhaps it's the people sleeping rough all around town, or the young people who don't find a place for themselves in our established churches. Our story today is of Peter's transformation and the shock of the circumcised believers that shows that God doesn't abide our divisions. God's Spirit, God's power, is poured out on all people, all creation. And it's up to us to watch for it, to listen for it, to learn to recognize the Holy Spirit among whomever she may be found, and then join in extolling God.